Hi, my name is Shelby Redfield Kilgore, and I'm a Korean adoptee and the filmmaker of all these foster care and adoption films on this channel. I am very excited to share about a project that I am working on with another adoptee group called Adoptee Influencer Network. And this is a video series project called the Wishing Well, an Adoptee Interview series. And it was created by the founder of Adoptee Influencer Network, Tiffany Hennis.
I'm Tiffany Hennis, and I created the Adoptee Influencer Network because I believe that adopted people, when we find our voice and we reclaim our own stories, that we naturally influence the people around us to change how they think about adoption and about adopted people. I'm hoping that the Adoptee Influencer Network will help adopted people to find their voice and amplify their voice. When adoptees begin speaking about their experiences from their own perspectives, we often get questions from people who are struggling to understand why our story doesn't match up with what they thought about adoption. And so they'll ask us a lot of questions. Sometimes the questions are sincere, and people genuinely want to know what we think. And sometimes the questions are disingenuous, asked more because someone's reacting to our story and feeling the need to push back against what they're hearing from us. And so sometimes we hear questions like, well, do you wish your parents would have done something differently? Do you wish you hadn't have been adopted? What I've come to realize is in those conversations, when questions are asked in that way, I do have thoughts. I do have an answer. I do think about those questions, even though I know that in that moment, answering that person's question isn't going to help because they're not really ready to listen. But even though they aren't ready to listen, I think, you know what? I do wish my parents had done something differently, and I would like to talk about that. In fact, there's a lot of things that I wish were different about adoption in general, were different about my life growing up as an adoptee, and were different about my life now as an adult adoptee.
There is this main narrative of adoption out there that has been written and endorsed by people that aren't adopted, such as adoption agencies, adoption lawyers, social workers, adoptive parents, and parents that have placed their children for adoption. And with Adoptee Influencer Network, their main goal is to center adoptee voices to cut through the noise of what has been the mainstream narrative of adoption for many, many years, and really to bring to light all of the nuances in adoption stories.
In talking with so many other adopted people, I know that we all have thoughts of how things could have been different or better. We all wish that something might have changed or that there might be a different outcome for us today. The Wishing Well interview series is an opportunity for adopted people who are finding their voice to answer those questions for ourselves. There are so many different experiences of adoption and perspectives, and I believe that they all need to be heard and held together. So over the course of the Wishing Well series, we hear from a variety of adopted people who have very different experiences, and some of them who have very similar experiences. There's transracial adoptees, as well as same-race adoptees, infant domestic adoptees, as well as intercountry or international adoptees.
My part in this project, the Wishing Well series, is I took all of the Zoom interviews that were recorded by Tiffany, and I cut the stories together and made the videos. And they are streaming on Vimeo at the Adoptee Influencer Network channel. So I hope that if you are an adoptive parent, if you're a social worker, if you are a therapist, if you work in an adoption agency, if you're an adoptee even, this is a great resource. And I am so grateful that I get to help continue sharing these adoptee stories.
I wanted to give us an opportunity to have our thoughts and perspectives be heard on these questions. What do we wish our parents would have done differently? Do we wish we hadn't been adopted? What does that look like? When we go through our thoughts and our feelings and we think, what if I hadn't been? We also asked adoptees what they wish people knew about adoption, or what they hope or wish for other adopted people today. Listening to a single person's story is enriching and it's educational, but listening to the Wishing Well series as a whole, all of the adoptees that we interviewed, it's a really beautiful story as a whole.
And without further ado, I will share a short trailer of the Wishing Well Adoptee Interview series.
My name is Sarah Easterly. I am a domestic adoptee.
My name is Kevin. I'm a transracial domestic adoptee.
My name is Jen Chapman. I am a transracial, transnational adoptee from South Korea.
My name is Natalie, and I am an infant domestic adoptee in a closed adoption.
My name is Nicole. I am a domestic adoptee adopted by a single father.
My name is Francie Frisbee. I am a domestic infant adoptee.
I am a domestic trans-ethnic adoptee.
I wish that adoption were a very last resort and that we kept families together and worked a lot harder at keeping families together before we took the leap to adoption.
I wish adoption did not result in the lifelong challenges that it does for adoptees like myself and a lot of my friends and peers.
I wish that adoption could be reformed.
I wish adoption had more context when I was growing up. We didn't talk about adoption. Some of those issues from being separated from my biological mother have lasted my whole life.
I wish my parents would have told me it was okay to be angry and sad, that it was okay to not know why I was angry and sad, that it was okay to miss my birth mom.
I wish that somebody would have just said, it's okay for you to feel that way, and there are other people who feel that way too who are adopted.
I wish the narrative of adoption would change and that people would understand that just as much is lost as it is gained.
I think it's really beautiful to see the answers that these adoptees gave. I thank them so much for opening their hearts and being vulnerable to answer these questions.
As I watch these interviews of other adoptees, and they come from various backgrounds, there are international adoptions, domestic adoptions, transracial adoptions, same-race adoptions, and I always find myself identifying with some piece of their story, whether it's talking about a fear of abandonment, the struggle to find identity, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of security. But I think one of the things that I was fortunate not to have to endure was I did grow up in an environment where I was able to talk candidly about how I felt about adoption and all of the conflicting emotions that I felt as well. And I think that there are so many adoptees out there that did not grow up in an environment where they felt safe to talk about their feelings about adoption unless they were all positive. And when you grow up in a family like that, where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel that you're able to talk about your feelings openly, then you internalize that and you suppress those feelings and emotions. And that's always unhealthy to do, and it puts a toll on your body physically and spiritually, emotionally. And this is why I think a lot of adoptees don't come out and speak on their feelings until they're adults. And also because it's very important for them to try and make it better for the next generation of adoptees. And so I hope that you will all watch this series if you are somehow touched by adoption.
I hope the Wishing Well series helps us learn how to hold space for the depth and breadth of the adoptee experience. Thank you for listening.